Welcome to the MCAP American Government Introduction video. The purpose of this video is to provide a general overview of the test development process, the assessment layout, and how to access the released practice test items. The Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, or MCAP, is now the umbrella term for the entire assessment program in the state of Maryland. The Division of Assessment and Office of Social Studies work closely on the MCAP government, formerly known as the American Government HSA. While the name of the test has changed, the test development process remains the same. This is a flowchart developed by the Division of Assessment, showing the entire test development process that spans the lifetime of a program. For our purposes, we're going to focus on the item development process specific to the MCAP government. MSDE works with our vendor, Cognia, and Maryland teachers to help deliver our assessment. The boxes in green show all of the steps that involve Maryland teachers in this process. We are really proud that our teachers play a role in our government assessment program. In many states, this is not the case. To further highlight our teachers' work in the item development process, one of our first interactions with our teachers is during stimuli review. During this committee, teachers evaluate if a stimulus, be a chart, graph, political cartoon, etc., is appropriate based upon several factors, including the connection to the assessment limit. Then our item writers are given their writing assignments, which also include the approved stimuli. After the items have been written, they go through another teacher committee to have the questions evaluated. It is also important to note at each of our reviews, stimuli review and content review, while we evaluate the items from a content perspective, we also have two other subcommittees, bias and sensitivity and accommodations. These subcommittees review the items with other considerations and lenses in mind. After the items are approved by committee, they will be placed on a form as a field test item. From field testing, we can make sure the item is performing well by reviewing the stats and through the range finding process for the constructed response items. During range finding, we also have Maryland teachers participating. If an item performs well and does not have any other flags, it is then rested and eventually able to be placed on an operational form. The EBUS goes through the same process, but it is not as linear as the rest of development. There is a lot of back and forth to get a good question and sources that provide enough evidence to create selected response items. Please reach out to your local school system social studies supervisor if you are interested in participating on a committee. Now onto the layout of the government assessment. This has been the government assessment layout since the 2018-2019 school year. During that school year, the testing sessions were shortened to help promote the goal of MCAP in reducing times and due to state legislation, stating that the assessment should be designed to be given in a class period. The assessment layout is designed to be given sequentially, but it is up to the local school system to determine the method of administration. So in some locals, it might be administered over the course of one day during a long testing period. But in other systems, it may be spread out into 2 or more testing periods, which may run 2 or more days. You can see the test still has traditional selected response items and brief constructed response items, as well as our newer item types with the technology enhanced items and the EBUS, the evidence-based argument set. In session 1 and 3, there are just SRs, BCRs, and TEIs. However, you will notice in sessions 2 and 4, this is where students will encounter the eBus item, with a few standalone SRs and TEIs at the beginning of the session. Let's take a few minutes to review the item types we just discussed. All of the examples that are in this video are from the practice test. So if you'd like to review the items in more depth or interact with them on the platform, please visit that site. Selected response items. This is often referred to as a multiple choice question. It has a question, a correct answer choice, and 3 distractors. This is another example of a selected response item, but this example has a stimulus attached for students to use when they are answering the question. Brief constructed response items, or BCRs, can be with or without a stimulus. Here, students will be asked 3 bullets of information, normally following the format of bullet 1, directly asking for information or an explanation. Bullet 2, followed by a higher level cognitive question. And ultimately, bullet 3, reminding students to include details and examples to support your answer. These items are scored with a 4-point rubric. Ultimately, in order to get a 4, the response demonstrates comprehensive understanding of the content, question, and/or problem. The response is insightful and completely integrates knowledge to thoroughly answer the question. It addresses all aspects of the question. Both bullets are answered with details, demonstrates comprehensive government knowledge. Minimal misconceptions do not interfere with understanding. And when appropriate, applies evidence correctly from the stimulus to support the response. Technology-enhanced items, or TEIs, allow students to engage with assessment content and demonstrate their understanding in ways that a SR, or selected response item, does not allow. Currently, the Social Studies Assessment Program uses 3 main types of TEIs. Drag and drops. These work well for a student to complete a table, graphic organizer, or chart. With a hotspot, students will have to select 1 or more areas, or hotspots, on some type of graphic. The graphic can be a map, graph, chart, or image. With hot text or highlightable text, a student can be given a text or media element that presents a set of choices for students to pick from. Click to select items work well to select items in a list. On the paper form of the assessment, TEIs are not possible. So on the paper-based test, you will notice the replacement items or paper variants. Here you see the replacement item from the click to select item previously shown. Here's an example of an eBus as it is displayed on the testing platform. The platform is shown in a split screen. On the left side, students can navigate between the introduction and background and the sources. Please note, the arrow helps to expand the sources into a full screen mode. On the right side, students can navigate to each selected response and the constructed response item at the end. On the testing platform, students also have a notepad feature. In the eBus, the notepad feature allows students to keep their notes for all of the sources and all of the items related to the eBus. Here's the 5-point rubric used when scoring our eBus items. Ultimately, in order to get a score of a 5, a student must, or the response must, demonstrate substantial understanding of the content, question, and/or problem. The response is insightful and completely integrates knowledge to thoroughly answer the question, develops a comprehensive claim addressing the compelling question, supports claim with full synthesis, citing evidence from all appropriate sources, and connection to claim is substantial. And finally, minor misconceptions do not interfere with understanding. Finally, our practice items. There are two main locations to find our practice items. The first is the practice test site. At this site, the student will be able to take a practice form that is on the actual testing platform. Students will be able to gain experience with the testing platform and tools that they will be using on the day of the assessment. The second site houses all of the legacy government items. These were once housed on the MDK-12 assessment page. These items start as early as the 2002 sample items and go through the items currently on our practice test. The move of items from MDK-12 to this new item bank will occur in several phases. The first phase was moving the SRs and CRs to this system. That has been completed. Phase 2 has been started. Phase 2 is taking all of the constructed response anchor and sample papers and placing them into iTempora. That will be a more time intense phase since many of those anchor sets are handwritten. Here is the public release page for the item bank. This site has been updated, so it is now device neutral and accessible. Just a few notes about the organization. When you click on the American Government folder, you will see that there are 3 subgroups or subfolders: group by standard, group by unit, and group by year. The groupings are made up of the same items. The items are just organized in a different manner. Use what makes the most sense to you. The standards are the Maryland state standards, and the units are based upon the Maryland frameworks. Okay. The years are simply updated by each of the released years for those items. You will also notice the bottom of the American Government folder, several BCRs and EBUS. Currently, they are here for easy access to some of the sample responses. However, once phase 2 has been completed and all of the CRs and EBUS items have sample responses or anchor sets, eventually these will be located only in the folders. Thank you for listening. If you have any additional questions, please check out our website. And if you are on Twitter, please be sure to follow us.